A single question is still quietly circulating across intelligence circles, diplomatic offices, and global media networks. Is Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, still alive? The rumors began after reports of a missile strike targeting locations connected to Iran's leadership. Within hours, speculation spread across the information battlefield of the internet. Some voices claimed the strike had eliminated one of the most powerful figures in the Middle East. Others dismissed the claim as disinformation. But something unusual followed. No confirmed images, no verified intelligence briefings, no official announcement from Tehran. In a region where symbolism and perception shape power, silence itself can become a strategic signal. Because the death of Iran's supreme leader would not simply remove a political figure, it would represent a seismic shock to the strategic balance of the Middle East, a moment capable of reshaping alliances, triggering military escalation, and destabilizing an entire regional order. To understand why, we need to step back and examine how power actually functions inside the Iranian system. Iran's supreme leader is not a ceremonial authority. The position sits at the center of Iran's political, military, and ideological architecture. The supreme leader commands the armed forces, oversees the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, influences foreign policy, and ultimately holds the final word on matters of war and peace. In many ways, the office acts as the gravitational center of the Iranian state. Remove that center suddenly, especially during a period of regional tension, and the consequences could ripple far beyond Tehran. Israel would be watching closely. The United States would be calculating its next moves. Russia and China would begin assessing the stability of one of their most important strategic partners in the Middle East. Energy markets would react. Regional militias would reposition. Governments across the Gulf would prepare for uncertainty. But the mystery surrounding Khamenei also reveals something deeper about modern conflict. Wars today are not fought only with missiles and drones. They are fought with narratives, perception, and information. States release incomplete information. Intelligence agencies leak selective details. Governments amplify uncertainty to confuse their adversaries. Sometimes the objective is not to reveal the truth. Sometimes the objective is to shape what the enemy believes is true. And that raises an intriguing possibility. What if the rumors themselves are part of the strategy? To explore that question, we need to look at the shadow war that has been unfolding across the Middle East for years. This is not a traditional war fought with armies crossing borders. It is a conflict of assassinations, cyber operations, covert sabotage, and precision strikes designed to weaken adversaries without triggering a full-scale regional war. The list of targets in that shadow war is already long. In 2020, Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was killed in a U.S. drone strike near Baghdad airport. Later that same year, Iran's leading nuclear scientist, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, was assassinated in an operation widely attributed to Israeli intelligence. These operations demonstrated something important. Iran's enemies possess deep intelligence reach, and they are willing to use it. But those attacks also forced Iran to adapt. Over the past decade, the country has invested heavily in hardened underground facilities, redundant command systems, and layered security around its leadership. Many of Iran's most sensitive facilities, these systems were built for one purpose: survival. Which means that striking the most powerful figure in Iran would require not only military capability, but extremely precise intelligence. And that brings us back to the central mystery. If a strike really targeted locations connected to Iran's leadership, was the intended target actually there? Or had the target already disappeared into one of the most complex security networks in the region? Because in modern geopolitics, the most decisive battles often happen before the missile is even launched. The rumors surrounding Iran's leadership emerged against a background of escalating tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States. For decades, Washington has warned Tehran about two key issues: Iran's nuclear ambitions and its expanding missile program. From the American perspective, these capabilities could eventually reshape the strategic balance of the Middle East. From Iran's perspective, they represent something entirely different: deterrence. Iran's conventional air force is relatively outdated compared to the advanced aircraft fleets of Israel and the United States. Instead of competing in traditional air superiority, Tehran has focused on building a massive arsenal of ballistic missiles and drones. This strategy has dramatically altered the military equation. Iran does not necessarily need to defeat its adversaries in a conventional war. Instead, its strategy focuses on imposing costs. Cheap drones and missiles can force opponents to spend enormous sums on defensive systems. A drone costing tens of thousands of dollars can trigger interception responses, costing hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions. This is asymmetric warfare by design, and it has increasingly alarmed Israeli military planners. Israel's concern is not only Iran itself, but the network of regional groups aligned with Tehran. From Lebanon to Iraq to Yemen, Iran's influence operates through allied militias, capable of opening multiple fronts simultaneously. Rockets from Lebanon, militias in Iraq, drones launched from Yemen, cyber attacks targeting infrastructure. Together, these actors create a strategic dilemma for Israel and the United States. Even if they possess overwhelming conventional superiority, neutralizing Iran's entire regional network would require enormous resources and risk triggering a wider regional conflict. This is precisely why leadership stability inside Iran matters so much. The supreme leader ultimately coordinates Iran's military doctrine, foreign policy direction, and regional strategy. A sudden leadership vacuum could create uncertainty across the entire system. Military commanders might hesitate. Political factions could compete for influence. Regional allies might question Tehran's direction. But the reverse is also true. If Iran's leadership remains intact, its deterrence network continues functioning. And that makes Iran far more than a single country in the geopolitical landscape. Geographically, Iran sits at the intersection of several strategic corridors linking Central Asia, the Middle East, South Asia, and global energy routes. To the south lies the Persian Gulf, one of the most important energy corridors on Earth. Nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. That means instability inside Iran immediately raises alarm in global markets. Could oil shipments be disrupted? Could tankers face new security risks? Even the perception of danger in the Strait of Hormuz can send energy prices climbing. Shipping insurance premiums rise. Energy traders adjust supply forecasts. Governments begin preparing emergency reserves. This is why Iran's geopolitical weight extends far beyond its economy. But energy is only one part of the equation. Military planners across the region also respond quickly to signs of instability inside Iran. Countries such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have invested heavily in missile defense systems and advanced aircraft. These preparations are driven by one central concern: regional escalation involving Iran. Iran possesses one of the largest missile arsenals in the Middle East, and its drones have already demonstrated their reach. In 2019, a drone and missile attack temporarily disrupted Saudi oil production, highlighting how vulnerable modern infrastructure can be to relatively inexpensive weapons. That moment changed how many governments think about modern warfare. Future conflicts may revolve not around massive battles, but around precision strikes on infrastructure, energy facilities, ports, air bases, communication networks. In this environment, Iran's strategy becomes clearer. The country does not need to defeat its adversaries outright. It only needs to demonstrate that any war against it would be extremely costly. And that strategy extends through Iran's regional partners. Groups aligned with Tehran operate across multiple areas of the Middle East. In Lebanon, Hezbollah maintains one of the most powerful non-state military forces in the world. In Iraq, militias operate within a complex political and security environment. In Yemen, the Houthi movement has demonstrated its ability to threaten regional shipping routes. Together, these actors form what analysts often describe as Iran's regional deterrence network. This network allows Iran to project influence without deploying large conventional forces. And that is why moments of uncertainty surrounding Iran's leadership attract global attention. Markets react. Governments reassess strategies. Military planners evaluate new scenarios. Because uncertainty itself can become a geopolitical force. But eventually, uncertainty fades. Sooner or later, new signals emerge. Leaders appear in public, governments release statements, intelligence agencies adjust their assessments, and the world begins to understand whether rumors were reality or simply another layer of strategic noise. Yet even if the mystery surrounding Iran's leadership eventually fades, the deeper tensions that produced the speculation will remain. The confrontation surrounding Iran is not built around a single event. It is built around competing visions for the future of the Middle East. On one side stands the American-led security system that has dominated the region for decades through military bases, alliances, and strategic partnerships. On the other side stands Iran's model of influence, built on missiles, regional networks, and asymmetric deterrence. Both systems are designed to deter the other, and neither side can eliminate the other without risking a much larger war. This creates a fragile equilibrium, a situation where confrontation continues, but full-scale war remains avoided. For now. Several scenarios could disrupt that balance. The first is the continuation of the shadow conflict that has defined the region for years: covert operations, cyber attacks, and targeted strikes that weaken adversaries without triggering open war. The second is regional escalation. A miscalculation, assassination, or large strike could rapidly spread conflict across multiple theaters, from Lebanon to the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea. In such a scenario, global shipping routes, energy infrastructure, and international forces could all become entangled in the crisis. The economic consequences alone would ripple across the global system. A third scenario involves strategic containment. Global powers quietly reinforce deterrence while avoiding direct confrontation. Diplomatic channels remain active. Military forces posture carefully. Back-channel communication prevents escalation. Because despite their rivalries, most governments understand the catastrophic consequences of a full regional war in the Middle East. The stakes are simply too high. Energy markets, global trade routes, military alliances, all intersect in this region. which is why the question that started the speculation, whether Iran's supreme leader survived a potential strike, ultimately reflects something much larger. It reveals how fragile the geopolitical balance of the region really is. A single rumor can shake markets. A single strike can alter strategic calculations. And a single leadership change can reshape the trajectory of an entire state. In modern geopolitics, power is no longer defined only by military strength. It is defined by resilience, perception, and strategic patience. Iran relies on endurance and asymmetric deterrence. Israel relies on intelligence superiority and precision operations. The United States relies on global military reach and alliances. Russia and China watch closely, calculating how each development shifts the broader balance of power. All of them are playing a long game, and that game is far from over. Because in geopolitics, the most important events are often not the ones that dominate headlines. They are the slow shifts beneath the surface, the quiet strategic adjustments that gradually reshape the world. And as long as those forces remain in motion, the Middle East will remain at the center of one of the most complex geopolitical contests on Earth, a contest where uncertainty itself can become a weapon, and where the truth behind any single event may only become clear long after the world has already reacted.